Have you ever felt like you're your own worst enemy? Like no matter how hard you try, success always seems just out of reach? Well, buckle up, because we're about to explore the surefire way to sabotage your life, and trust me, you might be doing it without even realizing it. The hidden culprit behind most of our self-sabotage isn't laziness, lack of talent, or bad luck. It's something far more insidious: our own thoughts. Specifically, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of. These narratives shape our reality more powerfully than any external force. Let's start with the cornerstone of self-sabotage: negative self-talk. We all have that inner critic, but for some, it's not just a voice, it's a relentless, full-blown orchestra. This isn't just about calling yourself names when you make a mistake. It's about the subtle, pervasive beliefs that undermine every aspect of your life. Consider this: every time you face a challenge, your brain runs a quick simulation of the possible outcomes. If your default narrative is "I always mess up," guess what? Your brain will find evidence to support that belief, even if it has to distort reality to do so. This isn't just pessimism, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But here's where it gets really interesting. This negative self-talk isn't just affecting your mood or motivation. It's literally rewiring your brain. Neuroscience has shown that repeated thoughts create neural pathways. The more you think a thought, the stronger that pathway becomes. So, when you constantly tell yourself you're not good enough, you're actually training your brain to believe it. This leads us to the next level of self-sabotage: cognitive distortions. These are patterns of thinking that twist reality in ways that reinforce our negative beliefs. One of the most common is catastrophizing, always assuming the worst possible outcome. This isn't just being pessimistic, it's a form of emotional self-harm that paralyzes you from taking action. Another insidious cognitive distortion is personalization, the tendency to blame yourself for everything that goes wrong, even when it's not your fault. This goes beyond taking responsibility. It's about carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's exhausting, demoralizing, and completely counterproductive. But perhaps the most damaging cognitive distortion is what psychologists call mind reading. This is when we assume we know what others are thinking, usually in a negative way. They think I'm incompetent, they're just waiting for me to fail. This not only damages our self-esteem, but also poisons our relationships and professional interactions. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. Negative thoughts are bad, but how is this sabotaging my life in concrete ways? Well, let's connect the dots. First, these thought patterns create a constant state of stress and anxiety. When your mind is always scanning for threats and anticipating failure, your body responds as if you're in constant danger. This triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol, which, when chronically elevated, can lead to a host of health problems, from weakened immunity to cardiovascular disease. But it's not just your physical health that suffers. This constant state of stress impairs cognitive function. It becomes harder to focus, make decisions, and think creatively. In a world that increasingly values knowledge work and innovation, this puts you at a significant disadvantage. Moreover, this negative mindset affects your behavior in ways that create real-world consequences. When you're convinced you'll fail, you're less likely to take risks or seize opportunities. You might procrastinate on important tasks, sabotaging your productivity. Or you might overcompensate by becoming a perfectionist, paralyzing yourself with unrealistic standards. In relationships, this mindset can be equally destructive. If you're constantly anticipating rejection or judgment, you might withdraw emotionally or become overly defensive. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where your fears of rejection actually push people away. But perhaps the most insidious way this sabotages your life is through what psychologists call self-handicapping. This is when we create obstacles for ourselves to provide an excuse for potential failure. For example, you might procrastinate on a project so that if it doesn't turn out well, you can blame it on lack of time rather than lack of ability. This behavior might seem like it's protecting your self-esteem, but in reality, it's robbing you of the chance to succeed and grow. It's a form of self-sabotage that feels safe in the moment but ultimately keeps you stuck. Now, you might be wondering, if this is all happening in my head, why is it so hard to change? The answer lies in a psychological phenomenon called cognitive dissonance. Our brains are wired to seek consistency between our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. When we encounter information that contradicts our existing beliefs, it creates mental discomfort. To resolve this discomfort, we often unconsciously reject or distort new information to fit our existing narrative. This is why simply telling yourself positive affirmations often doesn't work. If they contradict your deep-seated beliefs, your brain will reject them as false. So, how do we break this cycle of self-sabotage? The key is to start small and focus on actions rather than thoughts. Instead of trying to force yourself to think positively, focus on taking small, concrete steps towards your goals. Each small success creates evidence that challenges your negative beliefs. Another powerful strategy is to practice metacognition, thinking about your thinking. Start paying attention to your thought patterns. When you catch yourself in a negative spiral, don't try to force it away. Instead, observe it with curiosity. Where did this thought come from? Is it based on facts or assumptions? This practice of mindful awareness can create space between you and your thoughts. It allows you to see them as passing mental events rather than absolute truths. Over time, this can weaken the hold these thoughts have over you. It's also crucial to understand the role of your environment in reinforcing these patterns. We're profoundly influenced by the people around us. If you're surrounded by negative, pessimistic people, it's going to be much harder to change your own mindset. This doesn't mean you need to cut people out of your life, but it does mean being intentional about seeking out positive influences and limiting exposure to toxic ones. Another often overlooked aspect of self-sabotage is the role of physical health. The mind-body connection is powerful. Poor sleep, lack of exercise, and a diet high in processed foods can all contribute to negative mood and thought patterns. Taking care of your physical health can create a positive feedback loop that supports mental well-being. Now, let's talk about a controversial but important topic, the role of trauma in self-sabotage. Many of our self-defeating behaviors and beliefs have roots in past experiences, particularly childhood trauma. This doesn't mean you're doomed by your past, but it does mean that addressing these deeper issues might be necessary for lasting change. This is where professional help can be invaluable. A skilled therapist can help you unpack these deep-seated beliefs and develop healthier coping mechanisms. Techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing (EMDR) have shown remarkable effectiveness in rewiring negative thought patterns. But perhaps the most powerful antidote to self-sabotage is developing self-compassion. This isn't about letting yourself off the hook or making excuses. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend. Research has shown that self-compassion is more effective than self-esteem in promoting resilience and motivation. As we wrap up, I want to emphasize that overcoming self-sabotage isn't about achieving perfection, it's about progress. It's about catching yourself in these patterns more quickly, bouncing back more easily, and gradually building a more empowering narrative about who you are and what you're capable of. Remember, the stories we tell ourselves shape our reality. By becoming aware of our self-sabotaging patterns and consciously choosing to write a different story, we can transform our lives from the inside out. It's not easy, and it's not quick, but it is possible. And it starts with recognizing that the power to change your life has been within you all along. So, the next time you catch yourself in a self-sabotaging thought or behavior, pause. Take a breath, and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? And more importantly, what story do I want to tell instead? Your future self will thank you for it.